So you guys probably wonder what I'm doing with a pitching wedge. It's a pitching wedge, not a putter, by the way.
Golf and I are not friends.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah. So here we are, beginning of March, and kind of the midway point of the season of Lent. We're going to culminate, obviously, at Easter and Holy Week at the end of this month. And golf's on my mind. It's not on my mind because I'm dreaming of playing golf. It's on my mind because I've always felt it to be one of the best images I know of in thinking about how to live life. So, you know how to play golf?
Forwards, backwards, no.
You play golf?
Oh, stationary.
I know you love soccer. So golf is, great golfers, which I'm not, great golfers play golf backwards, which I've always found to be fascinating. Meaning, so most hacks, you know, like they pick up a club, they stand at the tee, they try to hit the ball as hard as they can, they try to go find it, which is usually not in the middle of the fairway. They find it, they hit it again, they hit it again, they hit it again, finally they get in the hole. Great golfers don't play like that at all. Great golfers start by standing on a tee box, looking at the green, and asking the question, where do I need to be on the green to make the putt to make a birdie? Then they ask themselves, where do I need to be in the fairway to hit the ball onto the green in that spot? And then they ask, so now what do I have to hit from the tee box to get into the fairway? I find that to be one of the best images for life I've ever known, meaning you live life backwards. Most of us live life the wrong way. We just kind of like wake up, go through the motions, do whatever, and then die, which is not a good way to live life.
Not at all, no.
So when, not if, when you die, and when, not if, you die, and when, not if, I die, when we die, we're going to hear one of two things. We're either going to hear God say, well done, good and faithful servant, wait till you see what I have prepared for you, which is what we all want to hear.
Oh, yes.
Or we're going to hear,
You're going to hell.
yeah, depart from me, you wicked servant, right? Which nobody wants to hear. Nobody wants to hear that. So the key is live life in such a way, starting with that question, that real day which is going to happen, and then ask yourself, how do I need to live my life starting now so that when, not if, that day comes, I'm ready.
Run the race
And I've got like a
win.
tap-in putt.
Yeah.
Seems like we spend most of our lives actually trying to conserve all of our energy in order to make that moment get as distant from us as possible, instead of actually preparing to get there. We just say, let's eat well so we don't die early, instead of thinking of how do I want to die.
Right.
Which makes Jesus actually a pretty good golfer. I mean, he's
Great golfer.
he knows exactly where he wants to go and how he's going to get there at every moment. And his hour is always in view. So.
Yeah, we get so focused, I think, on, as you said, like this, doing the things of this world, not all of them bad by any means, but just we're so focused on that we lose sight of what we're actually doing here. St. Paul says we're going to run the race so as to win, right? And people they're not doing that because we get so focused on on our physical action of running,
right,
not looking at the race.
And I think some people think that when we talk this way, we're like living in escapism. But this isn't escapism, because if I'm always thinking of the end, it will mean that my life, concretely and practically, as it's lived now, will be very different. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you guys know, you were there, but my dad just passed away. And my dad, 91 years old, but my dad perpetually lived thinking about that day. I mean, he had everything in the world. Beautiful wife, 66 years, our family, material possessions, whatever, but he was always thinking about what's it going to be like on that day, and he worked backwards. And so when that day came, he was ready. And it changed, it meant that he, went about, staying in touch with, friends and family who were all over the country. It meant, staying close to the Lord in prayer and in the sacramental life. It meant addressing situations that he needed to address. It meant real, concrete, practical transitions in his life, or transformations in his life. And it made him to be a better man. So here we are in Lent, midway point, and the season of Lent is, at least a significant part of it is all about this. Like, what's in my life that's got to go so that when I'm there, I'm ready.
Because it's going to get there. You're going to get there. And like each one of you, I mean, even your father, for example, his way of approaching life by focusing on how to prepare for death was also how he brought you up. I mean, each one of our parents has instilled in us that I brought you into this world in order to meet God. And in essence, death actually is not something we should be afraid of. It's something that actually opens up a whole realm of...
Life is Christ, death is, fill in the blank real quick. Don't you guys answer it. You, fill in the blank right now. Life is Christ, death is blank. Do you know how St. Paul answers that question? Death is gain. That's the scriptural worldview. Death is gain. Why? Because Jesus has risen from the dead, which is what this season is going to culminate in the celebration of. Because if for this life only we have hoped in Christ, then according to Paul, we are the most pitiable of men. But we do not hope for Jesus for this life only. Jesus did not come to teach us a couple of stories and whatnot. Jesus came to shatter the power of death. And so the Christian lives without fear of death. Does it still give me pause? Absolutely. It's an awesome thing to stand in front of God. Right? Does it mean that we have to address some things in our lives? You better believe it. But Paul sits there and says, when he's contemplating his own death, I'm not sure what's better, to stay here and be with you or to go home. If it's to stay here with you, it means productive toil. If it means home, it means I get to go home. Like, who doesn't want to go home?
Yeah.
And I'm afraid many of us as disciples, I don't know that we're really loving the Lord if we're sitting here going, when I ask you how you doing today, and your response is, well, I'm still on this side of the grass. That's not a biblical response. The biblical response is, I'm here, it's productive toil, but man, I long to go home and be with God.
We've got to break our vessels of perfume that our Mary Magdalene did on the week before Christ and sacrifice them. Just shatter everything. Don't save your lives for some possibility. Don't try, because he has conquered death. And therefore, the more you spend of your life, the more you gain.
So we're going into Holy Week not too long, right? And then we're going to head into Easter. What do you want to say to folks? What would you guys say? What invitation, what encouragement, what challenge would you say to help us better prepare for Holy Week and for the celebrations that we're going to have of all that Jesus has done for us?
One of my things is give it all to Jesus. Don't hold anything back. Give it all to him. And the way you do that, especially as we enter Holy Week, is to ask him very clearly and very honestly to help us do that, to give us opportunities to give everything to him, to give us opportunities to enter into the mystery that is Holy Week, to the mystery that is Easter. That's how you do it. You ask him. You can't do it on our own. None of us can do this on our own. If we ask him, he will help us.
So give it all. What would you say?
I'd say, building on top of that in this year of mercy, it's give everything, but don't think that everything you can give is your possession. In other words, you have Christ in your heart. He said, I will be with you always. So sometimes we give things out, but we're afraid, we don't realize that everything is Christ himself. There is no limit to our giving. And we have to be super generous, and we have to figure out, how can I help the church? How can I help my neighbors? How can I help the random people around me? How can I reach out? And there's nothing that can overwhelm me. There's nothing that can overcome me, because Christ has conquered death. He has conquered everything.
I might just add to that, I'm thinking of both Jesus first and foremost, and then maybe my dad in a particular way. Don't be afraid to be great. Jesus is showing us the model of what it means to be authentically human, and he's pouring everything back to the Father by this total gift of self on the cross for you and for me. And we all are built with this incredible aspiration to be great. The challenge is we haven't been great all the days of our life. Goodness knows I haven't. I don't think either one of you have either. And so we can be, shameful. We can be, afraid, embarrassed, whatever. Who cares what's in the past? The decision right now is, what am I going to do now to live greatly for God as I look at Jesus making this total gift of self on the cross? And the most attractive thing to me about my dad was my dad lived an incredibly great, heroic, noble life. I want to do that. I want to die just like him. I want to die with nothing left in the tank, having been able to say to the Lord, Lord, my past wasn't perfect, but I love you, and I've tried to make of myself a gift to others. Let's watch Jesus as we enter into Holy Week, as he gives everything to the Father for us, and let's ask him to fill us with his Spirit so that we can do that back to God for one another out of love.